Hey, everybody. So we just had an election. Half the country couldn't be happier, and then half the country is absolutely devastated. And here's the thing, right? Like, if your side lost, maybe it's time to just kind of reevaluate what you think is important in life. You know, maybe the things that you think that you and everyone should have, like, I don't know, like free healthcare or higher wages or, I don't know, just equality and basic human decency. Maybe you should reconsider that maybe those aren't the most important things in life, you know, or maybe at least just understand that half of the country values other things, namely their own personal religious interests and like one other important thing that they're willing to sacrifice regression in several other areas rather than improving the greater good of, you know, the society as a whole. Right. But regardless, like everything's going to be okay. All right. Whatever that gets done that may seem really short-sighted and detrimental can all be undone if, you know, enough people down the road realize that it was very dumb and detrimental. You know, we can reverse it, you know? So, you know, in the meantime, just be the best human that you can be. You know, if you truly believe in whatever you believe in and you think that that's the right thing, then go do something about it. You know, don't just sit on Twitter or post little Instagram stories complaining and highlighting all of the wrong things that are happening and be like, I told you so. No, why don't you shut up and go do something? Go get involved in your local town's political scene. Go volunteer. You know, go be the change that you want to see in the world. Go be nice to people. Show them that your ideologies are actually better than what the majority of people voted for. Now, all that being said, I do, and I've mentioned this before, I do want to be fair. I want to prevent both sides. I'm also not exactly financially well off at the moment. You know, I'm operating this podcast at a loss. And so I was presented with an advertising opportunity after the election. I'm surprised that none of the candidates reached out in the weeks leading up to the election to advertise on the show, but whatever. I was approached after the election was over, and honestly, it was an amount of money that I couldn't turn down. All right. Like, my family's about to have the best Christmas they've ever had. And so again, I believe in free speech. I want to present both sides. And so what kind of hypocrite would I be if I didn't allow this? You know, so I'm practicing what I preach. All right. I'm doing something about it right now. All right. I'm being fair, and sure, I was bought. That's fine. But that just makes my life easier. And so, here's a brief ad, you know, just, you know, hear them out. And, you know, once that's over, we'll get into the show. All right. Thanks for listening. Hello, my fellow Americans. This is your supreme leader, Donald J. Trump. The best president this country has ever had, many people are saying. Some people lying, fake news, saying that this is not Donald J. Trump speaking right now, that it's just the podcast host being disrespectful. It's not true. It's fake news. This is Donald J. Trump. I've been doing a lot of podcast ads since my election victory. My voice is very tired, but no one has done more for this country than I have. Everybody knows it. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you on this podcast. I do incredibly well on the podcast. Tremendous audience. You probably saw me with my great friend Joe Rogan. Wonderful guy, wonderful program. People say there's never been anything like it. Joe's a fantastic guy, loves America. So first off, thank you to all the amazing patriots who voted for me in this unbelievable, historic third term as President of the United States. Absolutely historic. No one's ever done anything like this ever in history. And let's be clear, people are saying I wasn't the president over the last 4 years, but we all know that the 2020 election was absolutely stolen from me. Everybody knows it. It was the most rigged election in history. Clear as day. There was fraud. There was stolen ballots. I actually won it by a landslide over Sleepy Joe. I never lost. But we're moving forward. We defeated Lion Kamala, and I'm gonna fix everything that she and Sleepy Joe have ruined. Inflation, crime, Bidenomics, total disasters, all of them. Only I can fix it, folks. Now, for the people who didn't vote for me, well, let me just say you made a mistake. A big one. Right? Everybody's saying it. They all know that you were wrong. Total losers. But that's okay, because we're winning anyway. But believe me, you missed out. We're going to make America the greatest it's ever been. Better than ever before. We're not wasting time on climate change. It's fake news, folks. Right? Just another hoax to scare people. Instead, we're going to be protecting American value. Right? We're getting the critical race theory lie out of our schools and eliminating funding for all the little retard children. We're putting tariffs on all imports so China will pay for everything. And we'll use those trillions, not millions, trillions of dollars to deport all the Hispanics, even the ones who voted for me. Thank you, but you're gross. No one likes you. People are saying it. We're also going to be saving all the babies and letting the women die because they chose to be pregnant. We have too many women, quite frankly. Most of them are ugly. Truthfully, this is the America that Jesus would want. He's a big fan of mine, folks. Believe me. And by the way, if you want the best Bible you've ever seen, buy mine. It's absolutely incredible. God bless America.
This is a podcast.
Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, back for a third week in a row of alien stories. This is the 8th episode that we've done dedicated to aliens. I don't know if you can hear the music in the background, but I've got the sensory fruits on because we have Finn joining me today. I'm going to try to squeeze this episode in before he goes down for a nap. It is the chaos of having a baby. It's not really that bad. I'm over dramatizing it. But we're done with the aliens after this week. It's too much. I feel like I've been recording alien episodes for like a month, which kind of, yeah, because this is the third episode. I think I took a week off in between recordings. So it has been a month. It's too many aliens, you guys. And they're not even real. It's not even real aliens that we're talking about. Or maybe they are. Maybe the government just doesn't want you to believe. Maybe I'm a puppet for the government trying to throw you off from what's the truth, man. Tom DeLonge will never know what the truth is. He can just keep making Blink-182 records, which is what we all want. Anyway, 5 more stories. I don't know what I'm saying. 5 more stories here. We're talking about the Rendlesham Forest Incident, the Trans-en-Provence Case, the Phoenix Lights, the story of Granger Taylor, and our first story will be of the Manises Incident.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
I don't know why I said it so intensely. The Manises Incident. It's not really that insane, whatever. Anyway, it starts on November 11th. Hey, that's today. 1979, when flight JK297 departed from Salzburg, Austria to Las Palmas on the Canary Islands, kind of off the coast of, I think, like Portugal or Morocco. I think it's a Spanish territory. Anyway, after stopping for fuel on the island of Majorca in the Mediterranean Sea, the TAE Super Caravel, with its 109 passengers, ascended over the Spanish peninsula to its destination. However, as the plane flew over the island of Ibiza, where people take pills, as the song goes, pilot... So stupid. Pilot Francisco Javier Ledro de Tejada noticed a set of red lights that looked like they were headed right at the plane, which is very problematic because anything that hits a plane in midair usually doesn't end well. Tejada radioed to the military base in Madrid and the flight control center in Barcelona, but neither radar could explain what those lights were. So Tejada, he still sees the lights coming at him. He adjusts the plane's altitude, but the lights continued to appear as if they were getting closer. So, not to try to like have this close call or anything, Tejada opted for an emergency landing at Manises, just outside of Valencia. And then just before they touched down, the lights disappeared. So like he clearly sees these red lights coming at him in the cockpit window the entire time. He adjusts his altitude. They stay right there with him the whole time. Gee, I wonder why. Well, by now, however, because like, here's the thing. You have common sense. I have common sense. You probably think, oh, it's probably just like one of the lights on the dash, because airplanes have a bajillion lights and panels, and it's probably just reflecting off the cockpit window, and it's just something he'd never noticed before, and he kind of freaked out. Well, that's what I would think. But at this point, several radars were picking up 3 different objects, each one estimated at over 600 feet long. Several people on the ground also reported seeing these objects, and one flew very close to the Manises runway. The control tower at Manises tried to radio to the objects, but there was no response. An F-1 jet from the Spanish Air Force was scrambled at the nearby Los Llanos Air Base. The pilot of this jet, Captain Fernando Camara, raced out to catch up to these objects. When he got them in sight, he saw basically a brightly colored cone-shaped object, but as he tried to get closer, it just disappeared into thin air. Moments later, radars picked up a brand new object, but this time near Valencia, which is not super close to where they were. Camara turned around, raced over to Valencia to try to intercept this object. Again, as he got close, it just disappeared. Even worse, as he got close, his electronic flight systems inside his cockpit started jamming. Moments later, after that object disappeared, another one appeared nearby, and Camara gave chase. This time, however, the object sped off toward Africa, eventually just disappearing into the horizon. Camara tried to pursue this craft for over an hour, but was forced to turn around when he started to run low on fuel. So, upon hearing of this incident, people all over Spain freaked out, so much so that the issue eventually reached the Spanish parliament. Government officials kind of scoffed at this notion that it was a UFO, and instead listed the cause as, quote, a series of freak optical illusions, which included the lights from a chemical complex 100 miles away and whatever stars and planets were visible in the sky that night. Camara's in-flight systems jamming wasn't even mentioned in the report, but it was later attributed to a nearby U.S. naval fleet using their own electronic systems to monitor the Iran hostage crisis. Okay. However, Camara disagreed with that assessment, arguing that the Navy fleet was too far away and that his systems only jammed when he tried to shoot an infrared missile at the UFO. So, no one knows what it was. The Spanish government kind of like downplaying it. Whoa, was it aliens? Who knows? Actually, that's actually a pretty good one. I'm not going to lie. Like, that one's a pretty good one. If everyone is telling the truth. And why wouldn't they, right? Like, you have people on the ground, civilians, you have military people, airport workers, all corroborating the same thing. People seeing the same thing. Guys, this is a good one. I'm not going to lie. This is a good one. And why isn't it more popular and more publicized? Oh, pretty interesting. It makes you, kind of makes you think. It kind of makes you think. Anyway, the next story here. is of Granger Taylor, who was born on October 7th, 1948 on Vancouver Island in Canada. Although his father accidentally drowned at their family cabin near Horn Lake, Granger had an otherwise normal life. But rather than attend high school, he dropped out and began working in local mechanic shops, quickly earning a reputation for just being one of those dudes who could just fix anything. He restored a car, a bulldozer, a whole train. He also restored a World War II P-40 Kitty Hawk airplane that was later purchased by a collector for tens of thousands of dollars. So, because restoring practically every type of vehicle that had been made was proving to be way too easy for Granger, he set out to build his own spaceship. Because, I mean, look, we're in the, 60s-ish at this point. It's pretty easy. Space technology, though, still brand new. And so why not try to master that since he'd mastered everything else, right? He had also, at this time, because of all this, he had developed an intense fascination with aliens. And so within a year, he had welded a spaceship from spare parts and decorated the interior with furniture and small appliances. The problem, though, was that he was not entirely sure how aliens actually powered their spaceships, right? Was it anti-gravity? Was it magnets? How do they work? I don't know. But, he couldn't figure it out. Well, by 1980, he's worked on this for several years. And now he claims to be in direct contact with aliens. And he would just lie or lay. I still don't know which form of that word to use in this sense, but he would just lay in his spaceship for hours and allegedly receive telepathic messages from aliens in another galaxy. He was also doing a ton of acid at this point. So it's probably more the acid than the aliens. Or maybe that's how you open up your brain, man, to be able to communicate with, extraterrestrial beings in another dimension, because the sober mind is closed off to all those experiences, man. So when you do LSD, it opens up the extra capacity in your brain to be able to do that, whatever. I don't know. Well, finally, on November 29th, 1980, 32-year-old Granger left his parents a note and completely vanished. This note claimed that he was leaving to board an alien spaceship where he would embark on a 42-month journey to explore the universe, and that he was leaving all of his possessions behind. He then instructed his parents to go through his last will and testament to determine how to divide up the rest of his assets. And when his parents found the will, they noticed that he had crossed out the word death in every instance and replaced it with the word departure. Granger and his bright pink Datsun truck were never actually found. 6 years later, however, forestry workers found human bone fragments at a blast site near Granger's parents' house, leading authorities to just assume that the bones belonged to him and that he had actually just kind of blown himself up with dynamite. For whatever reason, the identity of these bones were never confirmed, which led many people to believe that Granger had truly joined a group of aliens and that basically he had just they had blown up his truck to make it look like he had killed himself. Others believe that Granger just left the country entirely and started a new life in South America, or that he was recruited by a secret government spy agency. In reality, he probably did enough acid to just melt his brain and believe the aliens were coming to pick him up, so he just drove out to the woods and blew himself up so that he could be transported to the spaceship and fly around the universe. But just interesting, it probably was his bone fragments that were found, and it was just so obvious that Canadian authorities were just yeah, we don't really need to do an autopsy here. This is it. Here's the, here's the remains of it. We've got better things to do. This guy was clearly insane. But no, because they didn't do that, you got all these alien believers out there who are like, oh, this is proof. This dude just disappeared. And the aliens got him. Well, maybe. Who knows? Our next story. Here, in the early morning hours of December 26, 1980, a security officer near Royal Air Force Base Woodbridge in Suffolk, England, saw a bright light descending into nearby Rendlesham Forest. This officer gathered a few troops and drove out to investigate, kind of thinking that an airplane had crashed and that they were just going to go recover. Instead, this officer found a glowing metallic object with several colored lights. But when the group tried to get closer, the object moved away from them up through the trees, sending nearby farm animals into a frenzy, as they described it. By sunrise, troops were then mobilized and on the scene to investigate. They noticed a strange triangular pattern on the ground, as well as several broken branches and burn marks on the trees. 2 days later, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt visited the site and took radiation readings. Recorded readings ranging from 0.03 to 0.07 milliroentgens per hour. I don't even know what that means. That might be normal. It might be like super high. I don't know. Halt released a memo on the events the following month, which immediately alarmed news outlets across England. People obviously just immediately assumed aliens because why not? Others had some more logical answers. Like, for starters, the initial ball of light that was seen falling into the forest was attributed to a meteor that was observed over southern England by several other people. Another flashing light that had been recorded during Halt's investigation was just the Orfordness Lighthouse a few miles away on the coast. Halt also noted that he saw 3 star-like objects in the sky that hovered above them for 2 or 3 hours during his investigation. Astronomers noted that those star-like objects were, in fact, stars. So I think it was probably a meteor and just a bunch of dummies in the British Air Force who were just caught up in the hysteria. 2 more stories here. So on January 8th, 1981, 55-year-old Renato Nicolai was working on his farm near the town of Trans-en-Provence on the Mediterranean coast of France when he saw a saucer-shaped object land in the distance. Upon closer inspection, Renato noticed that this dark gray craft looked basically like 2 saucers stacked on top of each other, and it was only like 5 feet tall. It also had basically like 2 little legs that extended less than a foot from the bottom of the craft, that it rested on. As Renato got closer to look at it, the craft suddenly took off, blasting up into the sky and flying away. Renato quickly ran down to the site and saw burn marks where the craft had been, but there was really no other evidence that anything had been there. He reported the incident to the local police the next day, who went out to the site to investigate. Police took photographs and soil samples and sent the report to GAIPAN, which is the French agency dedicated to investigating and explaining unidentified aircraft. I think it's GAIPAN. It's GEIPAN. GAIPAN? GAIPAN. Anyway, after looking over the details, GAIPAN, I guess, reported that the ground had been compressed by at least 4 tons of force with heat over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Phosphate and zinc were found in the soil sample, which didn't mean anything other than that it sounded important. They also noted that chlorophyll levels in the alfalfa near the site were as much as 50% lower than they were supposed to be, which also really meant nothing, but sounded important. French scientists immediately claimed that GAIPAN's investigation was flawed, mainly because the phosphate and zinc was taken from a damaged sample near the road, likely caused by a car tire. Renato, however, believed that the object was just like an experimental military craft, which made sense considering there was a French military base nearby. However, after 2 investigations lasting more than 2 years, no generally acceptable explanation was ever produced as to what happened in France. Finn is loving the fruit right now. It's a pineapple and a watermelon. They're just dancing with each other. They're getting into it. Oh, the pineapple was replaced by a lemon now, and they're getting after it. I mean, just shimmying side to side in the way that a watermelon and lemon would have to dance. It's captivating. I said this, a couple weeks ago. You want to get high and just, disappear mentally for a while, throw on the dancing fruit. It's hypnotic. It is the lemon and lime now. They're getting cuddly. They are getting cuddly. It's probably like a mother-daughter thing going on, or father-son, or maybe mother-son, father-daughter. I don't know. They're close, all right? They're snuggling up, and they're dancing, kind of grinding on each other a little bit, which is a little inappropriate, but who knows, man? Maybe that's how fruits get down. Anyway, let's finish up these stories. Just before 7 p.m. on March 13th, 1997, an unidentified man, of course, reported a V-shaped object flying over the skies near Henderson, Nevada. Henderson being adjacent to Las Vegas. This guy said that this object was as big as a Boeing 747, and it sounded like a gusting wind as it flew over. It had 6 lights on both sides of the V, which then ran in a pattern from top to bottom. A former police officer in Paulden, Arizona, over 200 miles south, then reported the same thing 2 hours later. In his case, though, he saw 5 reddish-orange lights, which was more detail than the first guy gave, and it appeared to be coming from 2 different sources. He rushed home to try to get his binoculars, and then he watched the object until it disappeared over the horizon. A few miles away in the town of Prescott, Arizona, phone lines at the police station blew up with dozens of calls about this object, which blocked out the clear, starry sky as it passed over. A man named John Kaiser watched the object with his family and noted the triangular light pattern. But unlike the initial sighting in Nevada, Kaiser said that this object was completely silent. 6 more people reported seeing the object in the town of Dewey, 10 miles east. And then in the next town over from Dewey, more people reported the same lights. At first, people thought it was a balloon, but as the object got closer, it took the same V shape that everyone else had been reporting. This object continued to move closer, eventually hovering silently just 100 feet above them before continuing onward through a gap in the mountains toward the Phoenix airport. Bill Granger, a cement truck driver who was hauling a load down a mountain north of Phoenix, saw this object. And he talked to journalists later, and he's like, "I'll never be the same. Before this, if anybody told me they saw a UFO, I'd have said, yeah, and I believe in the tooth fairy. Now I've got a whole new view, and I may be just a dumb truck driver, but I seen something that don't belong here." That's probably how he talked. The object got to Phoenix and hovered over the city for 2 hours before then turning back north toward Kingman. 2 more appearances of this V-shaped object were reported in 2007 and 2008, but were later attributed to flares and balloons. This original sighting in 1997, however, was much more difficult to explain. The V-shaped object, which was seen by Arizona Governor Fife Symington, what a name, was believed by many to just be another airplane. Symington, the reports of this were so wild that Symington actually held a press conference a couple of days later, claiming to have found the responsible party, only for his assistant to appear beside him in an alien costume because he wasn't going to take it seriously. A reporter from the Phoenix New Times argued that this phenomenon was caused by illusory contours, which was basically a visual illusion that causes the eye to see unconnected lines forming a single shape. Mitch Stanley, an amateur astronomer, observed the lights with his telescope and easily differentiated individual aircraft rather than one giant V-shaped craft. However, at a Discovery Channel town hall meeting that took place after the reports, the Discovery Channel got onto this and held a town hall where they filmed all these wackos. Yeah, I saw the lights. This aliens were coming to being invaded. This amateur astronomer was literally shouted down by several people insisting they had seen something different. Because who needs facts, right? Not an amateur astronomer who knows what he's looking at, who saw it through a telescope, who saw several different items. No, all these yokels, all these outlawed, running from responsibility desert folk who were just I saw it with my own eyes. This astronomer, he don't know. He's a Satanist. Knowing about the stars, whatever, right? Anyway, the problem, with Stanley's argument, according to everyone who was obviously smarter than him, was that the lights were moving in a different direction from the ones that he claimed that he saw, right? Even more, there were no military or commercial aircraft flying in that formation in that area on the night of the sightings. 10 years later, in an interview with the Daily Courier in Prescott, Governor Symington revealed that he had contacted several military officials about this phenomenon, but was never given an explanation. Symington said, quote, "I'm a pilot and I know just about every machine that flies. It was bigger than anything I've ever seen, and it remains a great mystery. Other people saw it. Responsible people. Fantastic people. Smartest people in the history of America. They looked at this. They saw the lights. They have no explanation. It's clearly aliens." I don't know why he turned into Trump, but I like it. He didn't know why people would ridicule it. No one still has any idea. There was never any explanation for what those lights over Phoenix were. All right, we made it. Part 8 of alien sightings and encounters in the books. Thank you for sticking with us through this. Let's recap and see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Number 1, commercial pilot, Air Force pilot, a bunch of people saw some stuff in Spain. No one has any idea what it was. I mean, unless there's a bunch of details that didn't get shared, it's pretty unexplainable. All right. And listen, it only takes one. It only takes one of these to be real for things to get flipped over. I've talked about this before. Like, it only takes one ghost sighting or one alien encounter to like turn everything upside down. So, you know, it'd be kind of cool if it did, but it probably did. Like, the world is not that magical, you guys. Like, I hate to tell you, it's not. All right. We are bound by the physical laws of nature, and it just it's not there. Anyway, number 2, Granger Taylor did so much acid that he convinced himself that he was telepathically communicating with aliens, and then he probably just went and blew himself up. That's probably what happened. And then number 3, mysterious lights flying over Phoenix. No one has any idea what they were, but people just assume it was probably aliens. Not that like there's any big private aircraft, aerospace industries out there who would just have experimental aircraft that they would fly around. Yeah, of course not. That's probably not it at all.
What did we learn?
Next week on Our Weird World, we are talking about aliens. More alien. No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. We're done. I promised you we're done. No. Instead, we're going to talk about some weird warriors from history going way, way back, like into the BC times, into the before Jesus times, with the stories of Hastine, Marcus Sergius, and Mithridates. Probably going to be a shorter episode next week unless some minor tragedy has befallen me and I go on a 10-minute rant about how inconvenient life is. Who knows? We'll find out. So thanks for listening. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.